Every single year, millions of gardeners waste time, money, and energy replanting the same vegetables from scratch. Tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, beans, all of them annual crops that die at the end of every season, demanding that you start over from nothing the following spring. But what if there were an entirely different category of food plants you could plant once and harvest for 5, 10, even 20 years or more? These plants exist. They have existed for millennia, and most gardeners have never been told about them. Today, we are going to change that. Here is a number that should stop you cold. 75% of United States cropland and 69% of global cropland are devoted to annual grain crops. Our entire food system, from farm subsidies to grocery store shelves, is built on plants that die every single year. But an estimated 94% of all plant species on Earth are actually perennials. We have been fighting nature this entire time, replanting what the planet never intended to be replanted, while ignoring the vast majority of edible species that were designed to persist. The question is not whether perennials work. The question is why we ever stopped growing them. The science behind perennial superiority is not subtle. Perennial plants develop deep, extensive root systems that hold soil in place, prevent erosion, capture dissolved nitrogen before it contaminates groundwater, and outcompete weeds so thoroughly that they reduce or eliminate the need for herbicides entirely. They emerge earlier in spring than any annual crop you can plant. In Minnesota, by the time annual soybean seedlings emerge in early June, perennial alfalfa has already grown enough for its first harvest. 40% of the season's production is already done before annuals even break ground. Perennials invest heavily in roots, crowns, rhizomes, tubers, and bulbs that store carbohydrates through dormancy, giving them a massive head start each season that no annual plant can match. Nitrogen leaching from fertilizer has been found to be dramatically lower under perennial crops compared to annuals. Wild perennial grasses have produced nitrogen-rich hay for 75 to 100 years with no appreciable decline in productivity or soil fertility, while adjacent wheat fields required annual fertilizer inputs just to maintain baseline yields. For the home gardener, this translates into less digging, less tilling, less buying seeds, and starts every year. It means lower water usage once established because deeper roots access deeper water. It means earlier harvests in spring when nothing else in the garden is ready. And it means a self-expanding food supply because many perennials multiply entirely on their own. But here is where most people go wrong. The perennials that gardeners do attempt are often the popular ones, and they make critical mistakes that doom these plants before they ever reach their potential. The most common mistake is growing asparagus impatiently. Asparagus is the undisputed king of perennial vegetables. A single crown can produce for 15 to 20 years or more. It has been cultivated since at least 3,000 years before the Common Era, depicted on Egyptian friezes, prized by Roman emperors. Augustus himself coined the phrase faster than cooking asparagus to describe quick action. But the mistake nearly everyone makes is harvesting in the first and second years. Asparagus needs 2 to 3 full years of establishment before you take a single spear. Most people give up or harvest too early, weakening the crown permanently and crippling decades of potential production. Those crowns need that time to build the massive root system that powers all future harvests. A well-established asparagus bed is one of the most productive food plantings in existence, but only if you have the patience to leave it alone at the start. The second mistake people make is planting rhubarb in the wrong climate. Rhubarb is an incredible perennial. It grows from rhizomes and can produce for decades. It is one of the first food plants harvested each spring, but rhubarb needs 7 to 9 weeks of cold temperatures around 3 degrees Celsius to grow properly. In warm climates, it struggles badly, producing weak stalks or failing entirely, and there is a critical safety warning that too many gardeners ignore. The large triangular leaves of rhubarb contain high levels of oxalic acid and anthrone glycosides. They are poisonous. Only the stalks are edible. During World War I, the leaves were mistakenly recommended as a food source in Britain, causing poisonings. This dangerous misinformation resurfaced during the Second World War, causing further illness and deaths. The third mistake is treating Jerusalem artichoke as a well-behaved crop. Jerusalem artichoke, also called sunchoke, is a species of sunflower native to North America, cultivated by indigenous peoples for millennia. It produces delicious, nutritious tubers. But the real mistake is planting it without containment. Jerusalem artichoke is highly invasive. Its rapid growth and ability to reproduce from buried rhizomes and tubers makes it nearly impossible to eliminate once established. The solution is to plant it in containers, raised beds with root barriers, or areas you want completely colonized. The nutritional upside is real. The tubers are rich in inulin, a prebiotic fiber high in potassium and excellent for diabetics, since inulin does not cause glycemic spikes like potato starch. But respect this plant's ambition, or it will take over your entire garden. The fourth mistake is giving up on globe artichoke because it seems too complicated. Globe artichoke is a domesticated thistle cultivated since the ancient Greeks. Most people do not know that cultivars like Imperial Star were bred specifically to produce in their first year from seed, and Northern Star can overwinter in northern climates. It is a rich source of folate and a moderate source of vitamin K, copper, and magnesium. Do not let the perception of difficulty keep you from one of the most rewarding perennial crops available. Now we arrive at the perennials that most people overlook entirely. These are the plants that deliver extraordinary returns for minimal effort. Sorrel is a perennial herb with deep-running roots and a bright, lemony, tangy flavor. It is high in vitamin C, requires virtually zero maintenance, and comes back year after year. In French cuisine, the classic salmon in sorrel sauce, invented by the Trois Gros brothers in 1962, is an emblematic dish of nouvelle cuisine. It appears in cuisines from India to Armenia to Greece, and it self-seeds so readily that one planting gives you a lifetime supply of greens. Walking onions are a perennial scallion that literally walks across your garden. The plant produces small bulbils at the top of the stalk. When these become heavy enough, the stalk falls over, and the bulbils root where they land, moving the plant to a new location. You get a year-round allium supply from a single planting. Use the green tops like scallions, the bulbils like shallots, and the underground bulbs like small onions. Combined with chives and potato onions, a perennial allium bed eliminates the need to ever buy onions from the store again. Sea kale is a salt-tolerant perennial that grows wild along European coasts. Thomas Jefferson grew it at Monticello. During the Victorian era, it was in general use as a vegetable across Britain. The blanched shoots, forced in darkness like Belgian endive, are the true delicacy. And here is the remarkable part. It thrives in poor, sandy, salty soils where little else grows. Good King Henry is one of the oldest temperate perennial vegetables in cultivation. Young shoots are eaten like asparagus in spring, leaves are used like spinach through summer, and flower buds are harvested like mini broccoli. It is a triple-use plant from a single planting. Then there are the perennial herbs, and this is where the most obvious wins are being ignored. Rosemary is evergreen and drought-tolerant. Thyme is a hardy perennial ground cover. Sage is a long-lived shrub. Lovage is a massive perennial that tastes like intense celery, grows to 2 meters tall, and one plant supplies celery flavor for an entire kitchen for years. Most people buy these herbs fresh at the grocery store every week, when a single planting would supply them indefinitely. A well-designed perennial herb spiral can replace $200 to $400 per year in grocery store purchases. And then there are perennial fruits and berries, the long game that pays off enormously. Strawberries multiply via runners, and a small bed can produce abundantly for years. Raspberries and blackberries spread aggressively from a single planting. Blueberries have a productive lifespan of 20 years or more. Currants and gooseberries are extremely cold-hardy, shade-tolerant, and productive for decades. And grapes can produce for 50 to 100 years. A single vine can yield 20 pounds of fruit annually. The real power of perennial gardening reveals itself when you think in layers. strawberries and creeping herbs on the ground, sorrel, chives, and walking onions in the low layer, asparagus, rhubarb, and sea kale in the middle, berry bushes and contained Jerusalem artichokes standing tall, and fruit trees forming a canopy productive for 20 to 50 years or more. This is not about eliminating annuals, it is about using perennials as the backbone of your garden, while annuals fill the gaps. In year 1, your garden might be 80% annual and 20% perennial. By year 5 and beyond, you can sustain 70% perennial and 30% annual, grown purely for variety and pleasure. The economics are staggering. A single asparagus crown costs $3 to $5 and produces spears worth $50 to $100 over its lifetime. A blueberry bush costs $15 to $25 and produces 5 to 15 pounds per year for 2 decades. The total return on investment from a well-planned perennial garden can exceed 50 to 1 over 10 years. And the future goes even further. Scientists are developing perennial versions of staple grain crops. The Land Institute in Kansas has been developing Kernza, derived from intermediate wheatgrass, as a perennial grain since the 1980s. A perennial rice developed in 2018 provided similar yield to replanted annual rice when evaluated over 8 consecutive harvests. Perennial grains develop root systems over 3 meters deep compared to annual wheat at approximately 1 meter, holding soil, sequestering carbon, and accessing deep water that annual crops cannot reach. The 2005 United Nations Millennium Ecosystem Assessment labeled agriculture the largest threat to biodiversity and ecosystem function of any single human activity. Perennial agriculture could fundamentally change that equation. The best time to plant a perennial was 5 years ago. The second best time is right now. This season, plant an asparagus bed and commit to not harvesting for 2 to 3 years. That patience will pay you back for the next 2 decades. Start a perennial herb spiral to replace grocery store herbs immediately, and pick one overlooked perennial, whether it is sorrel, walking onions, sea kale, or good King Henry, and add it to your garden this year. Stop replanting the same annuals every season. Stop rebuilding your garden from scratch every single spring. Start building a food garden that gets better with time, one that feeds you more abundantly the longer you leave it alone. The knowledge is ancient, the plants are available. The only thing standing between you and a garden that feeds you forever is the decision to begin.